Welcome to Double Bass Mechanics. This video contains exercises, examples, and advice to help you advance your drumming skills and your personal career. So sit back and enjoy. I'm using a Sonar Designer Series drum kit with Maple Light shells. The kit is comprised of two 18 by 22 inch kick drums, a 10-inch power rack tom, a 12-inch power rack tom, a 14 floor tom, and a 16-inch floor tom. The snare drum is a 6.5 by 14-inch wood snare. I use all Zildjian Brilliant Finish crashes, splashes, and hi-hats. I have a 10-inch splash, 14-inch main hi-hat, two 18-inch medium crashes in the front, 10-inch mini hi-hats, a 6-inch splash, a 20-inch heavy ride, 14-inch rock hats for my X hat, and a 19-inch medium crash. All of the China cymbals are Wuhans. The two main Chinas in the front are 18s. To my far right is a 27. Just underneath my X hat is a 12 and an 18 stacked. And then back by my 16-inch floor tom is an 18-inch China. Last but not least, I'm using two DW Turbo 5000 pedals. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about practicing. I think a lot of young drummers maybe don't really have a system, or maybe don't know how to approach their practice time, but I think it's important that you have a set time and a place to practice, and depending on what kind of person you are, you might want to practice in the morning, you might want to practice in the afternoon, or maybe you're an evening person, so you'll do it then. But just as long as you get some time in, I don't think the amount of time that you spend is really that critical, because an hour of intense practice is better than just 2 hours of maybe some light practicing and then getting lost through your practice session, maybe not having a set schedule. So the time is important, but as long as the time is used well, I think that's the most important thing to realize. So it all depends on the individual. I'd also like to talk about structuring your practice, because what I do is my practice is very structured. Over the years, I've just kind of developed my own little system. The first thing I usually do is I'll go in and I'll warm up. I don't play any of these exercises that you'll see later on in the video really fast. I'll usually warm up my hands and my feet at the same time, working between the two of them, and start to break a sweat, and then I'll start to get into more of the complicated exercises. You should never play without warming up, especially a live show, because that's when you can run into problems in your hands and your arms. There's a lot of little tendons in there and little muscles that can get hurt or strained. So warming up is very important. I also like to take time early on in my rehearsal schedule to work on new ideas, because that's when I'm fresh. After I'm warmed up, I'm fresh. I'll start going through a book or some exercises, something new that I want to tackle, and work on that for a while, spend some time. Then what I'll do is I'll run through a basic routine that I use to get me through all my speed and endurance exercises. So I'll get that out of the way. That's usually like an hour of a bunch of different exercises that I use just to maintain myself, to keep my chops up. And then later, after I get all that out of the way, I will usually work on new ideas. Perhaps I'm working on a project, some kind of a record. Maybe there's a couple of fills within a particular piece of music that's given me a hard time. I'll just start working on those things, and usually my practice schedule, or my practice time, runs anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day. And not everybody has that amount of time to spend practicing, so you have to make the most advantageous use of your practice time, of your time throughout the course of the day, and practice as much as you can. If you have the time, go longer. I have the luxury to do that, and that's what's gotten me to this level. Practice is very important, and how you practice is very important. So try and incorporate some of these ideas on your next practice session. At the top of this section, you probably noticed I'm using some strange-looking sticks. They're made by a company based out of California called Power Wrist Builders. These particular sticks are the heaviest model that they make in aluminum. They come in different gauges, and they also come in brass. I use these sticks with a lot of my basic hand warm-up exercises before a show, and you have to use them on a pad, otherwise you're going to do some damage to your drums because they are pretty heavy. So I use them to eliminate a lot of muscle fatigue, and they seem to work quite well. And then when you pick up your regular sticks, the regular wood sticks seem a lot lighter, so it eliminates a lot of problems. I've never had any tendon problems in my hands or in my forearms or anything of that nature, so it seemed to work pretty well. Another really good thing before warming up, before doing a lot of the hand stuff, is an old rudimental trick known as the forearm stretch. I'm going to demonstrate that to you real quickly now. It's a little complicated, but kind of bear with me. Hold the sticks like that, you know, put one tip near this butt end and the other tip near there so they kind of move on each other. And hold your forearms parallel to each other with your palms up, and take your left hand and slowly move it underneath your right elbow and continue on through. Okay, can you see that? Now go slow here at this point, because if you have never done this exercise, chances are those muscles are pretty tight. There's a lot of muscles and tendons in there holding all your joints together. You don't want to have a blowout. Okay, the reverse of this exercise, take your right hand, go underneath your left elbow, go slowly again, especially if you've never done this before, and hold it a little bit, and then come back out. Now, if you get to a certain point in the exercise where you feel that's as far as you can go, then stop, or maybe go to that point and hold it a little bit and then stop, because you don't want to bounce on that, because you might tear something, and you don't want to force your body to do something it doesn't want to do. Gradually work into this thing, but as you become more relaxed and warmed up, you'll find you can do it quite quickly. Don't do it this quickly when you first start. Do it slowly, but after you warm up, you can find you can do it very quickly like that. And it's very useful. It really keeps you loose. So give that a try before you warm up again. I want to talk a little bit more about the hand control exercises. Now, you're watching this video with hopes of developing your double bass drum skills, but you know, you can't run before you learn how to walk. You have to learn, you know, the stick control exercises. You have to learn to work with your hands before you can apply that technique to the feet. So it's a very important thing right here. You know, the rudiments come into play. I know a lot of people just keep harping on the rudiments and how important they are, but basically rudiments are to a drummer what scales are to a keyboard player or a guitar player. They're the building blocks for all the future development on the drum kit. So those shouldn't be ignored. They should be practiced, and they should be a constant part of your daily routine. Now, a couple of things too that you need to take into consideration is the actual stick technique. By the way, these sticks are custom made for me. They're made by Regal Tip sticks, and it's actually a my Terrana signature model. They are for sale now. For a while they were a custom made thing, but now they are on the market, and they're 3/4 inches thick, and they're 16 3/8 of an inch long. So it's a very heavy stick. That's why it's important for me to warm up before I start playing. That's why I use the weighted sticks, especially before a show. Now, when you start doing these exercises, you want to make sure that your hand technique is correct. You know, there's a lot of videos that go into this at great length and detail, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But basically, what you want to do is you want to find the balance point of the stick. You want to feel where it feels comfortable to you. You don't want to be up here because you lose a lot of your momentum and fulcrum. You want to be back here somewhere where the stick bounces comfortably without a lot of effort. Now also, if you notice, the fingers really come into play. When you're doing a lot of faster licks, it's not arms. If you're going to try and do a really fast roll and you try and do it with your arm, it's going to be very tight. But if you use your fingers, it's a lot more controlled. So that's very important to get the speed, and it's very important to take this technique, what's going on here with the fingers, and apply that to the feet. Okay? So you really have to master this section before you can go any further. It's very important. And now I want to demonstrate a few hand exercises from the industry standard. It's George Lawrence Stone Stick Control. It's an older book. It's been around for a long time. A lot of teachers use it. I still go back to it. It basically has every permutation of every sticking that you can imagine in the book. So I suggest you get a hold of that and work through it. And I'll show you some of my favorite exercises. One and two and three and a four and a one and two and three and a four and a one and two and three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one. One and a two and a three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one. One and two and three and a four and a one and two and three and a four and a one and two and three and a four and a one and a two and a three and a four and a one. This particular exercise uses 16th notes, but has a different sticking. It's actually a rudiment called the paradiddle. It's a very useful exercise. It's a very useful rudiment, and I use it a lot throughout the video and a lot of the performance pieces. So I suggest that you check this one out. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, 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 right. This exercise is a variation of the paradiddle, so you might want to pay closer attention to the sticking. Right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, exercise 6 is a combination of exercises 4 and 5. I like to play these two together. The sticking gets kind of complicated, and it really works the right and left hands, especially the left hand. Over here in this part, you'll feel the burn. So you want to pay close attention to the sticking. I'll play it very slowly at first, and then later you'll see it up to speed. Right, left, right. right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right. This exercise was inspired by the stick control book. It's a little something I made up. Basically, it's just to try to get my weaker hand, which is my left hand, up to level, up to speed with my right hand. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. In closing this section, I'd just like to give you a couple of pointers, a couple of things to think about while you're playing these exercises. The first thing is start really slow. Be relaxed, be focused, concentrate, try to keep all the stick heights the same, try to keep them all in balance, the right and left hand in balance, so that the rudiment or the exercise sounds very smooth. You also want to play the exercise a little longer than I played. I usually play them about 20 repetitions each for each exercise. You might want to go longer than that. You can go 5-10 minutes on each exercise. You might want to increase the speed. I think another good thing to do is to also play these exercises to a click track and play them at all tempos. Play them fast, play them really slow, and I wish you luck with these exercises, and there'll be more information on how to play with a click later on in this video. I want to talk a little bit about the mechanics of how the bass drums work, and how the pedals work, and how your legs work, and how seat height and placement all come into play back here. There's a lot of stuff going on back here. Maybe you haven't taken the time to think about it, but hopefully after you watch this segment, you'll take some of these things and utilize them in your own setup and playing techniques. First of all, I just want to start off with the actual seat height and placement. Now, if you notice, the seat is anchored down. I found basically where I wanted to sit and then just mark that area and put these little flanges in there, and it works quite well because I'm always in the same place. The bass drums are always in the same place. They're always at the exact angle, and there's some Velcro pads here that are mounted to some carpeting that hold the pedals in place. If you notice that the seat is also bungee corded down, so that a lot of times when I'm playing, I'll push off and stuff. The seat doesn't move; it doesn't come out of the hinges. That's always important especially when I'm playing live. You get a little crazy or the adrenaline starts pumping. The seat always stays in the same place. The other thing is seat height, very critical. If you notice where my feet are, I try to find the sweet spot on the pedals right here, and my legs are just a little less than slightly parallel to the drum platform, and very comfortable. Seat height also comes into play so that I can use, remember when I was talking about the finger technique, right? If you look here, the ankles are kind of suspended, okay, and I'm almost just doing a rocking motion. So the seat height, being very comfortable, allows me to get into this position. Now, it's going to be different for you because you might be shorter or taller than me. This part of your leg might be longer. This part of your leg might be longer. So you have to kind of take these things into consideration and kind of mold them around your own physical attributes. Also, I keep the seat pretty low, a little lower than actually you would get a seat from a store. I cut them down, and sometimes that runs into problems because you really can't collapse the legs completely. This one doesn't collapse because I've cut it so low. I want to talk a little bit about the drum pedal. Very important piece of mechanical equipment. The pedals are to your feet what the sticks are to your hands. It's a very personal thing. There's a lot of different adjustments you can make to these pedals. These particular pedals I've had for about 10 years, and they're like children to me. Only they're better than children because they don't ask me for money. But they work quite well. They're the DW5000 turbo pedal, chain driven with the round cam, not the accelerator cam. The accelerator cam kind of gives you a different feel. The pedal kind of speeds up as it gets to that point. And I'm really comfortable with the round cam, so that's also a personal choice you might want to take into consideration when looking for a pedal. Also, the new DW pedals, I've kind of retrofitted these with the new axle hinge. This is a nice little invention here, because what happens is that there's no movement side to side when you're playing. It's very rigid there, so that actually eliminates a lot of noise, and it also eliminates a lot of wear on the actual teeth of the cam. I used to replace these cams quite often. Now, if you notice, the beaters I use are a hard plastic beater, and if you look closely, you might see that they look like they were shaved. They're very worn. That actually happened from just practicing. The pedals actually just wore down. They're nice and flat, and it gets a nice impact on the actual bass drum head itself. You can see that. Bought the pedals when they were brand new. The beaters are brand new, and they just wore down. And I really like the way they are right now. I like the fact that they're a certain kind of a weight, and they meet the head very, very nicely, flush on the head. That also means that there's not a lot of damage to the head. I think if it's kind of digging in at a weird angle like that, you're going to get some dents in your head. That doesn't happen anymore. It did happen a little bit when I first got the pedals. If you also notice that the pedals strike relatively in the middle of the drum, dead center on the drum, and I get a nice arc. You know, you want to get a good, powerful swing, so when you lay into that thing, you're actually using the momentum of the beater, and you're not so much working your legs, you're just kind of like working it in that manner, okay? The weight of the beater and the spring tensioning is what's allowing me to just work the pedals very effortlessly. There's a lot of physics and a lot of mechanics involved in there, and it's up to you to kind of suss those things out and make sure that you can actually dial your pedals in. I spent a lot of time thinking about this and dialing the pedals in. It's gotten to the point now where I've actually got the spring tensioning marked on these little screws down here, which leads me to spring tensioning. Now, I like my pedals pretty tight. You might not like them tight. You might be able to play real fast with them slow. That's cool. You should do whatever's comfortable for you. I'm just kind of telling you what works for me. I like them relatively tight, and I also like the right pedal tensioned a little higher than the left pedal, and that's basically because my left foot is a little weaker than my right foot. And you'll see in the exercises later on in the tape that I do a lot to kind of get the symmetry happening. I'm trying to get my left foot as strong as my right foot, as even as my right foot. That's the whole thing. Same thing with the hand exercises. That's what those are all about. You try to get symmetry from your top half of your body to your lower half, and then you want to split your body this way. Get the right and the left happening. If you get all those things dialed in and you're correctly balanced and you feel comfortable behind the drums and the pedals are dialed in mechanically, you're going to play a lot better. You're going to play a lot faster, and you're going to be able to do these exercises with a lot more ease. Bass drum tuning is another thing that comes into play when you're thinking about double bass. You don't want to have the bass drums tuned so low that the head is very slack and wrinkled and very sloppy sounding, and then when you play into that, the beater's not going to come back as fast, and that's going to slow you down a little bit, and it's also going to make your playing sound muddy, live and in the studio. You want a nice, tight, focused, well-tuned bass drum sound, and that's going to change. Sometimes you're playing live, they might ask you to put a little more dampening in. Sometimes you're in the studio, they'll put a lot more dampening in. Whatever it takes. Microphones don't hear things the way human beings hear things, and all human beings hear things differently too. So you're going to have to work with people on that. But basically, when you're practicing for yourself, you should try to get a good sound, something that you're comfortable with, and that when you're playing your fills, that everything sounds in balance and it's tuned well. I'm using a double ply attack 2 head. It's a clear head, has a tone ridge. This tone ridge kind of cuts down on some of the overring. And I'm also using a little trick developed by Simon Phillips, which works quite well, I found, on drums that have finer drums, maybe a higher line drum that has a very nice bearing edge. On cheaper drums, this doesn't seem to work too well from some of my experimentations. However, you get a very nice full sound with this technique, and it's easy to do, and it's cheap. You basically just roll a towel and tape it in. Also, I wanted to talk about the size of the bass drums. I used to use 24-inch bass drums, and that's a larger drum, a little harder to control the ring, a little boomier sounding. I've noticed now I've gone to 22-inch bass drums. They're 18 by 22, so they have a little more low end to them as well. But the smaller diameter allows me to tune the head a little lower than I actually would on the 24, and I still get a focused, punchy, good slap, nice attack to the drum. Okay. Now, the front heads I have on the drums are provided by the company. They're like a thin ply black head. A lot of guys don't pay too much attention to the front head, but what happens is if you get the back head tuned and you get a nice tight focused sound, what's happening is the microphone that they put in is near the front head and you're getting like a kind of a weird ringing noise. You want to do something to dampen that. You can either run a felt across the back, across the front head, or you can run what I do is I use duct tape. I'll take the front head off, and I'll just put tape across the back, one layer of tape, completely across the back of the head, and put it back on. It seems to dampen it very well. And you want to have a good size hole in there, maybe about a 10-inch or an 8-inch hole, and so they can move the microphone around in there and kind of get different sounds as they go. You just want the sound man or the sound engineer to have a little bit more ability, a little more flexibility as far as moving the microphone around. And that's basically it for that subject.
All right, first I'd like to start off by showing you a bunch of exercises to help power and endurance with the double bass. But before I do that, I just want to give you a few tips that'll help your performance as far as playing the exercises. If you notice, I wear wrestling shoes that have a flat sole, and they allow me to slide back and forth on the footboard. When I'm playing fast stuff, my heels are up, and I'm back towards the heel plate of the footboard, okay? And I employ a rocking motion, like that. It mostly comes from the heel. Not a lot of leg is used in the actual exercise. When I'm playing harder stuff, slower stuff, my foot's closer to the top of the footboard, still playing with the ball on my foot, and rocking the pedal in that manner. Okay, the wrestling shoes allow me to be comfortable and slide back and forth on the pedal. And I think when you're playing these exercises, you should pay close attention to your foot placement. It'll help you play the exercise better, because if you're trying to play something fast and maybe you're too far up towards the front of the footboard, you're not going to get the proper speed. You're not going to get the proper feel on the pedal. The first group of exercises I want to start off with is what I call the building blocks. These exercises basically just get your hands and your feet playing the same thing. And it also gives you the feeling of independence between right and left foot, and it also helps your balance. The first exercise I want to show you is the quarter note exercise. 4 quarter notes on the snare drum, 4 quarter notes on the bass drum. I'll start off very slowly. If you'll notice, my foot will be up towards the top of the pedal when I start. As it gets faster, it becomes a 4-stroke rough. And my foot moves towards the back of the pedal, still employing the rocking motion, and it becomes like a finesseful fluttering technique. So pay close attention. I'll start off slow and build it up to speed and then bring it back down. if you noticed, my foot moves back and forth on the pedal. For the slower stuff, closer to the top. For the faster stuff, when it shifts into the 4-stroke rough, I move towards the back. Exercise number 2 basically involves subdividing the quarter note into eighth notes. Once again, pay close attention to my foot placement in relation to the speed of the exercise. When I'm playing harder and slower, my foot's closer to the front of the footboard. When I'm playing faster, my foot is closer to the heel plate of the footboard. Okay? I'll start out very slow and then build it up to speed. Exercise number 3 is basically a permutation of exercise number 2. It involves the eighth notes, but it's playing this exercise with a triplet feel. Exercise number 4, the final exercise, is basically just subdividing the quarter note one step further into 16th notes. It goes like this. This next example is basically just a permutation of the first split exercise I showed you. I'm just going to insert a 16th note triplet in between the transition point from switching right to left. This next group of exercises that I'm going to take from the Colin Bailey Bass Drum Control book break up the paradiddle between hands and foot. I'm going to use the single, the double, and the triple, and I'm going to use all those rudiments on the right foot, and then I'm going to use all the rudiments, play them all straight through on the left foot. So it'll be single, double, triple, single, double, triple. In this particular section, I want to cover 4 of my favorite exercises from Colin Bailey's Bass Drum Control book. I found the book really helpful, especially the triplet exercises, because it forces you to play things with your right and left foot that you normally wouldn't play on your own. And it goes through all the different permutations of these exercises, so you don't really have to think a lot. It's easy to read and very useful in building endurance and strength in the right and left foot. And I'm just going to show you these next 4 exercises. This particular exercise deals with endurance. I'm going to be playing eighth notes, eighth note triplets, and 16th notes on the bass drums while I'm just keeping time with my hands. And I'm going to use do it with the right foot, and then I'm going to switch to the left foot. And basically this exercise, I'll do it over a span of about 20 minutes. And it's really good for building endurance, power, and coordination. Now I'm going to play the same exercise, only I'm going to chop the first half off. I'm not going to play the eighth notes. I'm just going to play eighth note triplets into 16th notes. As a final warm-up, I'm going to chop off the first two sections, and I'm just going to play the 16th note pattern, alternating between right and left foot. Now I'm going to take the full exercise, and I'm going to play the exact same groupings, except I'm going to alternate between the right and left foot. I'm going to play the same exercise again, only this time I'm going to chop off the front half of it. So I'm just going to play the eighth note triplets into the 16th notes. During the 20-minute phase of this exercise, I'll switch back and forth to different groupings. And now I'm going to play for you the first half of this exercise, which is the eighth notes into the eighth note triplets. These exercises might sound mundane and boring, and to play them over a 20-minute period might not be too interesting, but believe me, if you practice them enough, you can come up with a whole slew of ideas. For example, on the Tony McAlpine record, Freedom to Fly, the last exercise that I just showed you helped inspire me to play this particular beat on the song Freedom to Fly. Although I'm not doing it here for the demonstration, I think you should play this exercise with a click track all the time at different tempos and different ranges of dynamics. Play it hard, play it soft, extend some of the sections, try to play them longer, and remember to pay attention to your balance and your center on the seat and to the way that your feet are placed on the pedals. That's very important, especially to get the faster stuff, because you want to be back here with your heels up. So practice that one, and good luck with it. It's helped me out a lot, so hopefully it'll help you out. Now here's an exercise I have that's also another endurance exercise using the paradiddle. And I'm playing the paradiddle voiced on the crash cymbals, and I'm accenting it with the bass drums, so it ties the hands and the feet together. And you'll notice when playing it that you'll feel some stress or a little bit of a burn here in the arms and the hands and the shoulders. So it's really good for your cardiovascular development and endurance and coordination. So if you play this over an extended time frame, like 10, 20 minutes, you'll notice a vast improvement in your playing. This particular exercise involves a rudiment called the paradiddle, and it involves a little bit more tricky footwork, so you want to pay close attention to how I'm playing that with my feet. And I'm going to be playing eighth notes on the hi-hat, and the snare is going to fall in on 2 and 4. So check it out. The next variation of this exercise involves playing what is known as an inverted paradiddle. First I'll play the paradiddle, and then I will invert it, and you'll be able to hear the change. Basically my hands are doing the same thing that I was doing in the first exercise. Now I'm going to show you an exercise that I've taken from a Billy Cobham transcription. It's basically an independence exercise, and it involves playing the paradiddle with my hands in quarter notes. So it's going to sound like, and underneath that I'm going to be playing the paradiddle in 16th notes with my feet. Okay, so when you put it all together, it's kind of a brain twister, but what's going to be happening is the hands are going to be playing at half the speed of the feet, and I'm going to be superimposing the paradiddle on top of the paradiddle that I'm playing with my kick drums. So this is how it sounds. Once you master this exercise, you can make it a little more complicated. I kind of took it one step further by employing the twirl with the hands. I found that it made things a little more complicated, and it also helped me loosen up. By twirling the stick, I kind of like worked some of the muscles in my forearm and stuff. So I would suggest, doing the exercise, starting it very slow, because it is difficult. And once you master it, you'll be able to like do different things with it, play around with it a little bit. So I'll just show you this little variation that I did, and you can try it at home. Good luck. This particular exercise has like a broken triplet feel, and I use this particular lick in the song Rio. I use it on the intro, and it was inspired from this exercise. In closing this topic, I just wanted to say that I developed these exercises and started working out of the Colin Bailey bass drum control book basically because I wanted to play the same patterns with my feet that I could play with my hands. And after years and years of working on it, you know, I was able to do that. And the other thing is, you really want to be able to build the power and coordination with your feet. You know, your left foot is usually weaker than your right foot, so I found that the exercise kind of helped balance everything out. And you've got to remember one thing, that when you're playing live or you're playing in the studio, the sound engineer can only mix so much of your sound. You are responsible for your own sound. In other words, the volume of the snare has to be equal to the volume of the kick drums if you're going to combine, you know, hands and feet all over the drums, you know. And if you're weak, if your legs are weak, your hands are going to be louder and your feet will be quieter. I know when I started doing this stuff, a lot of the double bass stuff, we'd go to record it, and they gate the drums, which means that they set each microphone for a certain level, a certain threshold. And if you're hitting the drum at a certain impact and you hit less than that, you don't get the same sound on tape. So I started doing these exercises to strengthen my legs, and now when I go into this fast double bass stuff, everything's the same. Everything is an equal volume, and I think that's probably, if you get anything out of all these exercises, that's the most important thing, is to build your coordination, your speed, and your power, and you want to have a nice balanced sound. And just work hard on it, and it'll come to you. It's going to take some time, but I wish you luck. I want to give you a couple of tips on tuning. You're probably saying, why does this guy have a drill in his hand? Believe it or not, this is a big time-saving device. Man's got to have tools, you know what I mean? So let me just show you a few things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this head off very quickly. When you're on the road or you're in the studio, you want to change heads quick. And if you don't have a tech, this is a good way to do it. Now that we've taken care of that, we got the head off. This was a drum head that I used during the performance pieces. It's an Attack 2 double ply clear with a tone ridge. I use the thicker heads when I play live. I get a little more durability out of them. I just want to show you a few things too about the construction of the drum head. This is called the collar of the head. This is the part of the head that sits on what is known as the bearing edge. On a good drum, it should be relatively sharp and true. In other words, flat all across. You shouldn't have any wavers in the edge. And on these particular heads that I use, the Attack 2s, the flesh hoop, this is the part that actually holds the material, is crimped. In other words, it's not glued in, and it's crimped in a way that the heads don't pull out. I've never had a pull-out problem. So in other words, when you do a rim shot really hard, sometimes right where it sits on the rim, where you're hitting it with the stick, the plastic material will pull out. That doesn't happen with these because of the way they're designed and put together. Now in the studio, I use the thinner coated head. It's a single ply coated Attack head. I'll just show you real quickly. We mount that on there. I'm going to show you some quick ways to seat the head. Very important. Get all the lugs lined up. I recommend at least kind of hand tensioning some of these tension rods, or all the tension rods actually, before you use the drill. And the drill that I'm using has a reverse and a forward speed on it, and it also has a torque setting. I use it on the lowest torque setting. So in other words, if I'm holding onto the drill, it won't keep spinning. It'll stop. So that way, very important. If you've got it tuned onto the highest torque setting and you go down on the tension rod, you might bend the rim or ruin the threading in there. You don't want to do that. You want it to just kind of meet the metal piece there. Okay. Get this tensioned. what I'll do is I'll hand tension the drum from here on in. Just trying to get rid of the wrinkles. The drill really does save a lot of time, especially when you're on the road or you're trying to change a lot of drum heads at once. Just remember to be careful. You don't want to over torque anything. And I can see from how the head is stretching, see it needs more tensioning over here, so I'll just tension it up. Still buzzing a little bit. You can see there's a small wrinkle there. Everything pretty much over here. It's buzzing a little bit over here too. Okay, now the drum head has some kind of uniform tension on it. The next thing that I'll do in seating the head is that I'll actually stand on the head. And I find that when I do this, it just actually does something to the material. I'm not exactly sure what, but I know it adds durability to it. I mean, I use very heavy sticks, very thick sticks, and on a thin head like this, it really doesn't last too long unless I seat it properly. So by standing on it and stretching it, what I'll usually do is, if I have the time, the day before a session, I'll really put a lot of tension on the head and stretch it properly and leave it tuned higher overnight. Then what I'll do is I'll loosen it all up again and then bring the drum, up to pitch. I think another thing that you have to look at or be conscious of is when you're tuning the drum, you want all the tensioning, once you get it to a desired pitch, once you get to that pitch, you want all the tensioning on each lug to be virtually the same. So one way to do that is just by tapping around the lugs, trying to get them relatively close in pitch. Once that's done, you can just basically put it back on the stand and fine-tune it from there. Drum tuning is a really kind of personal thing, and it's also kind of an inexact science. Spent a lot of time in this video talking about it, but fortunately someone's already made a video on it, a guy named Bob Gatson, who's kind of a real innovator. He's taken the time and effort to really go through all the different combinations of heads and tuning applications, and he's got a great video out called Drum Tuning, and it's on the DCI label. So I suggest going out, picking that up, and checking it out. It's got a lot of great information on it. You almost have to take notes on it. It's really a well-constructed video on drum tuning. One other thing in closing, I'd just like to say that this can be your best friend sometimes, or it can be your enemy. I found in the studio, I try not to use a lot of tape for dampening. I like the drums to ring true. I like them just to have the two heads vibrating together to get a nice pure tone. But some people, engineers or producers, don't really like a ringy kit, so you might want to cut the ring down, and I'll just show you a little trick. Some guys take duct tape and they'll just kind of roll it. Make a little roll out of it. And they'll stick it up here by the bearing edge. And I'll show you before I put it on. The drum's kind of ringy. It's tuned kind of low right now. That takes some of the ring out, okay? Another technique is to take some tape. Take a good length of tape. What I'll do is I'll cut it in half. And then just kind of put some little ridges on it. The whole purpose of this is just kind of breaks up any kind of standing wave that might be on the drum. This usually happens when you're using thinner heads. Thicker heads you don't have to dampen too much, but sometimes it's better to start out with a real live sound and control it with tape rather than start with a dead sounding head, and then you really have kind of no headroom. You have nowhere to go, just deader. So. And you don't want to use a lot of tape, but try it. Work with the people. Try to get a halfway decent sound. You're trying to get rid of some of the nasty overring. So this is also a technique that works pretty well. That'll cut down some of the ring. So I hope some of these techniques you find interesting, and hopefully you can utilize some of this information in your next session or gig.
Well, here we are in the recording studio. This is probably the most challenging area for me. This is where you combine all of your talents. You got to remember one thing: when you're in the studio, you're striving for perfection, and you're striving for a good performance, and it's usually something that's going to be around for a long time. So there's a lot of different elements and a lot of different pressures that come into play when you're in the studio. A big part of getting things done in the studio is being prepared. However, that's not to say that things can't change. Some of your best licks might need to change once the microphones get up and people are really listening to the song. So, have a good idea of the arrangement or whatever the kind of song you're going to be playing, but also be aware that some of your cool fills might have to be reworked just to, fit in with maybe the songwriter's concept or something that the producer or engineer feels would be more advantageous for the song. Also, I think in working with these people, you need to be open-minded, and that comes into play when you're dealing with tuning of the drums, again, specific parts, tempos of songs, and you just want to let these people know that you're open to their ideas. You don't want to be stubborn and not want to work with them, because what happens is if you do work well with these people and you play well, that can lead to future work. If they got a good vibe from you as a person and as a player, that word's going to get around. And the best way to get a studio experience is basically to get in the studio as much as you can. Now, usually that costs money, but if you're playing with a lot of different bands, or people who write songs or something, try and get in that way. Try to do as many demos as you can, because that all adds up to experience. The more experience you get, the better you're going to be, the more relaxed you're going to be, and eventually, hopefully, the more work you'll get. Now, when you get into the studio and you start checking your drums and hitting the drums, you got to remember that the engineer is dialing in the sound based on how you're hitting the drums. So if you're a light player and you play light all the time, then that's your consistent way of playing. Then check the drums that way. If you play heavy, play hard, check all the drums, and make sure that you maintain that consistency, that same level of hard playing while you're playing the song, because what the engineer does is he gates the drums. A gate is basically an electronic way of stopping any overring from the drum. Okay, and if the threshold or the level of the gate is set at a certain volume and you don't hit it hard enough so that the gate electronically opens, you're not going to get your sound on tape. You'll be going down the toms, and if you're lighting up, it'll be a gap. You know what I'm saying? You won't get the whole fill. So hitting the drums at a consistent volume is very, very important. And also, I'd like to talk a little bit about hitting hard. You don't want to play so hard that your playing is forced and you're stiff and you're going to hurt yourself or ruin the equipment. A lot of players give the illusion of playing hard, and I like to do that. I think it looks cool, but in the studio, looks don't count. You want to hit the drums with authority, and you want them to sound good. So basically, and you don't want to waste a lot of energy on the drums either. So I just want to show you a bit of a technique. What I do is when I hit the toms, I have my toms set kind of flat, and it kind of forces me to use this technique. But what I do is I hit, and instead of driving through the drum in the rim, I hit and snap. You know what I mean? Just like that. I don't waste a lot of energy. I try not to drive through the toms. The heads will last a lot longer. Your playing will sound more relaxed. I do the same thing on the cymbals. When I was younger, I used to hit the cymbals really hard and drive the cymbal right into the center post of the cymbal stand. Basically, all that does is it makes the cymbal flex here. It doesn't really sound good. It makes the cymbal sound worse, actually, and you're not getting a good tone. It bends it, and that's how you end up cracking your cymbals. You get like little smiles in there. So what I do is I get in, I hit, and I swipe. I don't waste a lot of energy, so it's kind of like that. Kind of a swiping motion. The cymbals will sound a lot better. They won't sound so choked. So give that a shot next time you're playing your drums or working in the studio. Throughout the course of this video, I've talked about the click track or the metronome. It's a very important piece of equipment. It's very important to practice with that all the time, and the place where it really comes into use is the recording studio. That's where it really comes into play, because a lot of people, songwriters, engineers, they like to hear everything at one even tempo. It's very important, and there's an art to playing with the click track. It's not just playing on the click so it sounds sterile. You have to play behind the click. I find that that's the best spot, the best place to hang, and try to give it a human feel. doing the exercises in your own time and playing songs that you know on your own time with the click track will really help you prepare for the studio. And the other thing is when you run into artists who write songs, they usually write the song with a drum machine or a sequencer of some sort, and they're used to hearing the song in a nice even flow. And that is the reason why I play to a click. Most of the sessions I do, most of the recordings, records I've done are done with a click track. It really is helpful in just keeping the whole picture nice and tight. I can recommend that you buy some sort of a Dr. Beat or another kind of metronome, a simple metronome, just so that you can practice with at home. I have an interesting little piece of equipment. It's made by Yamaha called the QI-20. It's actually a drum machine, a sequencer, and it also has a bunch of sound sources in it. It has about like 100 sounds, bass lines, and keyboards and stuff. And you can do a lot with that, but I basically use it just to generate simple bass tracks and stuff so I can play along, and I use it for a click track, and it's very useful in the home practice. So I can't stress enough how important it is, and I'm going to show you a few things. I'm just going to demonstrate how to play behind the click and demonstrate on the kit how it all should come together. Okay, so check it. I want to talk a little bit about working with a bass player. It's a very important topic. You need to be able to work with the bass player well, especially in a recording studio, because you're under the microscope, and that's when any inconsistencies between bass and drums become very apparent. You have to remember that bass and the drums are a very fundamental part of the musical foundation, the rhythmic foundation of a piece. So it's kind of like the underlying backbone. If that's not very tight or very solid, when they lay the rest of the music on top of the bass and drums, there's going to be kind of faltering. It's going to sound strange. It's not going to sound really good, So you want to work out with the bass player, Now, if you play in a band with the guy and you're going into the studio, the best thing to do is to play with the bass player, run through the songs without the other members of the band. You wouldn't believe some of the things that stick out sometimes. You think, really, you were doing that there because the guitar was playing over it, and I really couldn't hear exactly, what kind of rhythm you were playing or what kind of lick you were playing, and that's when things really get tight. And if you want to go one step further, put a click on, you play to the click, and then play the songs with the bass player, and it's a really good way to practice, and it's a really good way to prepare yourself for a studio session, especially if you're in a band with these guys. So that's one thing you should look at. Another thing is when you're just practicing with a bass player or working with him in a session, you have to listen to what he's playing. Vice versa, he has to listen to you as well. Otherwise, you guys aren't going to communicate properly musically. There's times where you're playing exactly what the bass player is playing, accenting those riffs with the kick drum. Or there's other times where you're kind of playing against each other, kind of floating around, yet everything's still in time and everything still fits musically. So there's a variety of different ways and approaches that you can take. I just want to show you a couple of different techniques in playing with a bass player. Sometimes when a guy plays a bass line and I'm kind of unfamiliar with the song or the line that he's playing, I'll just let him play it, I'll listen to it, and then I'll just play something very simple and try to catch some of the basic accents, just play along straight. Just lay down some time, listen to it, see how it goes, and then as you're playing, usually certain ideas come to mind, certain things that he does, and it might be natural for you to accent a certain thing here and there, and I'm going to demonstrate that as well. And then there's other times where the bass player might just be playing a groove and you're playing over it, almost like in a solo fashion, playing against it. A good way to practice sometimes, if you have a friend of yours that's a bass player, is to just let him play for 4 bars while you hold time, and then let him hold the time for 4 bars, and you can play all your solo ideas and musical ideas over the top of that. It's a really good way to practice. I can't stress it enough. I hope these musical examples kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how to practice and keep things together with the bass player. I want to talk a little bit about soloing. I think a lot of young drummers have kind of a warped view of what a drum solo is all about and how to go about writing a drum solo. So I just want to give you a few insights to that. First of all, I think the solo should be looked at like a piece of music. It should have an introduction, a beginning, a middle, kind of a climactic point, and an end, so that people who are non-drummers can follow the whole thing and enjoy it as well. You have to remember that not everyone out there is a drummer, so they're not totally in tune with all the technical things that you're trying to display, although that is important too in the soloing. I also think that the solo should be a statement, a nice musical statement. I don't think you can lose as long as you keep those things in mind. And by using dynamics and maybe stick tricks and other things that you do well, you definitely want to build on your strong points, not your weak points. You want to take the things that you do really well and utilize those and try to put them together in a musical fashion. And I think you'll get through. I think you'll get through to people and move them. That's the whole point. The other point I'd like to make is that the solo should be original. You don't want to copy other people's solo work. You want to kind of define your own style and display that. You want to have your own voice. The way you tune your drums, the way you look behind your drums, and the way that you solo, the way you write your solo, is going to be indicative of your style. You want to communicate with the drums.
Michael Terrana on the drums! Check it out!
As you can see from that particular solo, which was recorded in Tokyo, the Budokan with Yngwie Malmsteen, that whole solo piece was not just something thought up on the spur of the moment. I have a basic skeletal structure to my solo. Some parts are improvisational, other parts are worked out. The solo may change from night to night, but basically it's the same solo. I like to keep a frame of reference for the whole thing. That way it goes a lot smoother. It's more musical. There are parts where I step out and kind of, come up with different ideas, try out a different idea, maybe go out on the edge a little bit, and then I come back and I go to the things that I know that are kind of impressive or sound cool. And I think that's a good suggestion for young drummers. Try to write things for yourself that are concise, entertaining, and well chained together. And I think what you'll do is you'll turn some heads when you do a drum solo instead of just a bunch of aimless licks to impress your drummer friends, because you're reaching a small part of the audience. You want to play to the whole audience. So I would work on that and practice hard, and good luck with that section. I have a very physical approach to the way I play my instrument, and I'd like to talk a little bit about physical conditioning. I think that's something that plays a very important role in my style as far as drumming and my personal lifestyle. I do lift weights, but I wouldn't suggest lifting heavy weights. I use very light weight and high reps, and that really helps me get a good cardiovascular workout, meaning my heart rate goes up, and I don't build a lot of bulk muscle. You don't want to get real big in here, because when you play drums, you want to be very loose and fluid. If you're very stiff and tight, your playing is going to sound forced, and you don't want that. You want to be in shape, and you want to be fluid, yet you don't want to be too muscular. So that's why I use the weights, lightweight. It's also very good for endurance. By using low weight and high reps, you can really build a lot of strength, and I think that's something that's necessary. Like when you're playing 2 hours a night, instead of all this big bulk and everything for mass just to look good, that's not really the important thing about training, and definitely not for drumming. I found it worked against me. At one point, I did get carried away with weightlifting and found it to really work against what I was trying to accomplish on the drums. So my suggestion to younger guys out there is not to get too carried away with weightlifting. The best practice for the drums, the best thing for your drumming is to play drums. If you want to augment it with some kind of physical conditioning program, I would recommend using the lightweight. As far as endurance, I can't talk enough about that, because the way I play also requires a lot of endurance. I found kind of a little magical workout thing. I use a jump rope to kind of enhance my double bass playing. I use a leather rope with weighted handles, and I jump rope maybe 3 or 4 times a week for 20 to 25 minutes, and that didn't happen overnight either. The first time I jumped rope, I think I could jump rope for about maybe a minute straight, and then I had to go lay down. So if you get into jumping rope, I would suggest starting really slow. Try 1 minute rounds. Try like three rounds of 1 minute or something, then try to build up to 3 rounds of 3 minutes, and eventually, with a lot of time and practice, you'll be able to jump rope for longer periods of time. And not only is it good for your calf muscles and your double bass playing, but it's just good for your overall general conditioning of your body, your heart, your lungs. You feel better, it wakes your body up, and it's also good for your drumming. So you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Give it a try. Now, if you like that, if you like jumping rope and you have a little more spare time on your hands and you enjoy exercising, there's also another technique that I use, or that you can use, to augment your exercise program. And what that is, I use a speed bag, which is a little kind of pear-shaped bag that's filled with air, and you can, hit it back and forth. It goes back and forth on this backboard. It's fun. It's rhythmic. You can do all kinds of different patterns on it and stuff. And the basic premise of the exercise is to strengthen your upper body, your arms, your shoulders. I use it as a warm down, usually after jumping rope. and you'll get like a really good burn up here in your upper arms and stuff, which is the muscles that you use for drumming. So it's a repetitive motion, which is a lot like you do with drumming. So you're not going to get tight. You're actually going to get stronger and get more endurance from that. So, like I say, if you have time and you want to go a little further, that's something I do just to keep things a little more interesting and to keep me in shape. So give that one a try as well. Now, the audition. This is a subject I'd like to shed a little bit of light on for the younger drummers especially, because if you're practicing hard and you're looking for work and you finally get an opportunity to audition for a major act, chances are you're going to be fairly nervous and you might not know what to expect. So I've been on a few auditions for larger bands and have gotten the gigs, and sometimes you don't get the gigs. So it's the agony of defeat, so to speak. I know what that feels like, and sometimes you get it and you're elated and you feel like you've done the right things, but you really never know. You never know what to do. You have to kind of play the situation, and I think there's a lot of things that come into play. I would say first and foremost, probably just a little less importantly than your actual playing, is going to be your personal attitude and the way you present yourself. Are you equipped? Are you prepared? Are you an easy person to work with? Because I'll tell you, when you get out on the road, you're on a tour bus or you're in a plane or you're in the recording studio, these are high-pressure situations, and nobody wants to work with somebody that is hard to get along with or that's kind of weird or not able to handle pressure. So they're looking at a lot of different things, and I think that's one thing that you should take into consideration when you first meet the people, when you walk into the audition. Another thing is that I can say on preparedness is know the songs. Know the beginning, know the ending, and be very conscious of the tempo. Get a click track, some kind of a Dr. beat or something like that, and clock the songs. Make sure that you're actually going to play the song at the proper tempo, because if they're auditioning drummers and they've already been touring, they know the songs inside and out, and they know what tempo the songs feel comfortable at, especially if there's a singer. And that's going to dictate pretty much how the audition goes. Also, you should play the songs note for note, whatever. If it's a drum machine, play pretty close to the drum machine patterns. Probably throw in some of your own fills, throw in a little of your own flavor, but try to stay close to the arrangement, because the chances are that whether a live drummer or a drum machine program was used, the person who wrote that song put that stuff there for a reason, and that's what they're used to hearing. So if you start throwing in strange fills, you're going to throw people off, or maybe they'll look at it as overplaying. So if there's a part in the song where it's like there's a break and it's like da, that's cool. Keep it, put it in. Don't go because that everyone's just going to look at you and go, what was that? Where did that come from? I don't remember hearing that on the tape. So you can kind of put yourself in a bad situation by doing things like that. You want to show them you're good, but you don't want to show them like you're tasteless or that you're inconsiderate of the actual song structure. So those are some good tips, I think, just for beginners, and even for guys that are out there, even working on a semi-pro level. You should take all these things into consideration. But the first and foremost, I think that preparedness is the thing that wins you the gig. Preparedness and a professional attitude. So keep those things in mind on your next audition, and good luck. Now that we've talked about the audition, we should probably talk about, where do I get the audition? I mean, where is the work? Sooner or later, whatever town you're in the United States, there's going to be a time where you're going to kind of outgrow that loop that you're in, that circuit, and you're going to want more work. And you're either going to have to go to a place that has work, or the work's going to come to you. Chances are you're going to have to go. So that's why a lot of people either move to New York City or Los Angeles or Nashville. Those seem to be the hotbeds for a lot of recording and touring, places to hook up with bands that are touring. And I think that's another thing you have to think about as well, is what do you want to do with your drumming? Do you or your career? You should have some kind of a plan. I mean, what do you really want to do? Do you want to tour exclusively? Do you want to do sessions? Do you want to stay at home and just work in the studios, or do you want to be a band member, get your band signed, and stick with the band from the beginning to the end, or do you want to do it all? Chances are, if you want to do any three of those things, you should either be you should be in one of those three locations that I mentioned. I think it would be more advantageous for your career. I personally am originally from Buffalo, New York, and it got to a point where I had to eventually leave to sustain my drumming career, and I moved to Los Angeles in 1987. I think it was a good move. I started hooking up with other people. The endorsing companies that I was working with took me a lot more seriously, and it worked out in my favor. So there's something else to consider if you're interested in really pursuing a professional career in the music business. Now we've talked how to prepare for the audition. There's a tool that you can create for yourself that will help you get auditions and endorsements as well. It's called a promotional package or a press kit. Basically, what that consists of is an audio tape of your playing, a videotape of your playing is good as well, a good photo, an 8 by 10 photo of you, black and white or color, either you on your drums or just a headshot so that people can get an idea of what you look like. Also, a good thing to include is personal bio, personal information on you. You should list your credits, like people you've played with in the past, records you've done, and also try to include maybe some references, perhaps the organization that you're trying to get a hold of. Maybe you know a mutual friend of theirs, so you can include that on there, name and number. Those are all things that will add up to help you acquire some kind of correspondence with either the band's management or the band members themselves. In conclusion, I'd just like to say that the material for this video comes from about 15 years of personal playing experience. And through those years, I've kind of learned the hard way what works and what doesn't work. There's really no hard and fast rules for a successful pathway to the top. You just kind of have to weigh out your options and be open-minded. And I think what you should do is just take whatever you want from this video and use it for your own personal career. I'd like to thank you for watching. Practice hard. Good luck.